welcome to part 3 of the AI program. In this exercise, we're going to install a chatbot locally right on your machine. For a quick high-level overview, in 3 steps, you'll be running your own personal AI chatbot. It's completely free and will require no internet to run it. The first step is we're going to install Docker. Docker is an engine that allows you to run containers. These containers are virtualized software groups. They're ready to run within your Docker engine, all on your machine at home. In this case, we're going to install, press play, and open a web browser. Step 2 is installing the OpenWebUI Docker container. Now, OpenWebUI is a user interface pretty similar to what you get with ChatGPT. There's a box for you to ask a question, and then a place for you to read and respond with the chatbot. The cool thing about this particular container is it has Ollama built into it. Ollama is an API server, and these APIs are required for the LLM to read and respond to your chats. So this is kind of rolled into that Docker container, which leads us to step 3. Is we're going to have to install some Ollama models, and Ollama models are the LLMs that you're going to be chatting with. Ollama provides a list of different models, and it's not just one specific big company. It provides models for DeepSeek, for Gemini, for Alibaba and Meta. So lots of options for you to pick and choose from. That way you can decide which one works best for your particular use case. The first thing we're going to do is install Docker. There's links at the bottom of this slide deck, so you'll be able to go directly to these pages that I'm showing as we go through it. If you're on Windows, which is what I installed, you really just do your standard download stuff. If you're on Linux, you can use the terminal if that's your preference, or if you have Snap, you can download it here and install it like Windows. But just keep in mind different installations for different machines. So if you're depending on your operating system, just pick the right one for you. And then once you install it, you'll notice that this is what the interface looks like. Of course, once you first run it, you won't see any containers. This is kind of post OpenWebUI installation, which we're going to dive into next. But you'll have your containers, you'll have images stored in the system, and you'll have volumes once we get this installed. So what we're going to do first before we even get to this point is we are going to install OpenWebUI. So this is that Docker container we kind of chatted about. You can hit the link to take you to this GitHub webpage. You'll have to scroll down a bit to get to this part, but you want to go to the section that says installing OpenWebUI with bundled Ollama. So this is the one that I use. This is the one that I'm demonstrating. It really will kind of depend on your hardware. If you have a GPU, click this. If you don't have a GPU to run, then click that. But one thing to note is I tried GPU, and if you don't have a GPU that's supported, it'll automatically default to CPU. So feel free to click on this one, and you won't go wrong either way. We'll copy and paste that, and then we'll come back to the Docker container to plug it in. We're going to have to install this in the terminal. The terminal is basically you're connected directly to your actual machine. I like to think of it as like in the old days, you had these computer programmers, and these geniuses would have to communicate with the computer through this black box. There was no install buttons to click. There was no Windows user interface. It really was just text code from start to finish. So copy and paste it in here, and it'll run this command. This command has a couple of different parts, which is why I prefer this than actually using some of the interface options within Docker. It'll allow you to set your ports. So 3000 is going to be the port that opens up the web interface. You have 8080 that's going to tie to the APIs for Ollama. You can set your GPUs here. It defaults to all, but if you only wanted to use, a piece of your GPU, you can actually modify this if you wanted to. It's going to spin up some volumes, and volumes are your backups. So if you're saving data or installing stuff within this machine, then you kind of want to have a backup, because if your container gets deleted for whatever reason, you'll always have access to whatever you previously installed on the machine. It's going to create a volume for Ollama, and it's going to also create a volume for anything that you do in the Open Web UI interface, any changes you make, anything you save. You'll have the option to name it. It defaults to Open Web UI, but you can change this if you wanted to. And then it's going to pull the image from this website. So similar to if you go to Windows and you download something to install, it provides you with an image that's going to execute and walk you through the installation. But this is just a similar way of installing software on your computer that doesn't require, a install button. So just think about it that way. Copy and paste it in here, hit enter, and it's going to run through the installation. Then once it's finished, you'll have this nice little Docker container that says name, container ID, image, the ports, and then your stop and play buttons. Before we can get there, we have to install the Ollama model, because you'll have an interface, but you won't have anyone to chat with. So this is the third step, is we're going to go to Ollama. You're going to open up the library. The links are at the bottom. This has already changed since the last time I've been in here. This is how quick it's moving. I think I looked and took a snippet of this page 3 days ago, and now there's DeepSeek at the top. So yeah, it's moving quick. So I would suggest you notice that there's a bunch of different sizes, these 1B, 4B, 12B. You're going to think about them in gigabytes. That's what I do. It's tokenizations, but you don't have to worry too much about that. Just know that the smaller, the better while you're trying to get this installed. So just click on the name of the model that you want to check out, and then you'll be able to see the different sizes. And you really want to copy the name of the size that you want. If you just click on Gemma without, if you just click on this and run Gemma, it's going to do the latest. So this one's the 3.3 gigabyte size. It's going to support text and image. But while I was testing, depending on your internet speed, of course, sometimes it might take a while. So I would just suggest just starting small, just to make sure that you're able to talk to this LLM. That way you're not waiting a lifetime to install a large model, and then find out that it just doesn't work the way that you want it to. So start small and work your way up. Copy and paste that into the Docker container. So the difference here is this terminal connects to your local computer, so your Windows machine or your Linux machine. This here, if you click the ellipses, it's actually going to open the terminal inside of this virtual environment. I think that's pretty cool, huh? So you're going to open this terminal and you're going to paste it in here. And this is actually going to pull the Ollama model into your Open Web UI container. And then once it's done, there's a couple commands that might be useful. Is you first want to make sure that it's in there. So you're going to type Ollama list, and then you're going to see a list of names of models that are installed inside of this virtual machine. When you first do this, there's going to be 0, but if you installed Gemma right now, you should see one of them, something on the list here. There have been instances where I've tried a model and it was too large and I needed to remove it because I wanted to save space on my computer. So using the Ollama remove command would be helpful. So you just type Ollama RM to remove, and then you type in the name of the container or of the model that you want to remove. So that's kind of the thing with computers, is they don't usually guess. If you have a typo in here, it's going to say, I don't know what you're talking about. So you just want to make sure that you copy and paste exactly the name as it is, as it's listed. All right, 2 good commands to know. Once you have the models installed and you click on the localhost button, or you type in localhost :3000, you're going to see this interface here. In this drop down, you're going to see all of the models that you installed. If there's only one, you're going to see only one, and one is enough. So you just highlight that one, and then you can start chatting. On the right, you can see chat controls. This is not something we're going to dive into, but it is something that I like to show, just because there is actually a lot of tools within this user interface. If you're excited to explore, or what does this mean and what does that mean, The chat controls are going to allow you to change the tone of your chatbot. I think there's some instances where you might be able to change like the accent or, how thorough do you want them to be? Do you want them to talk like a bro? So these chat controls are kind of cool. I'm not geeking about chat controls. I am more interested in the back end where you can actually upload your personal knowledge documents and then have the AI bot actually respond to you with the stuff that's contained in those documents. So there's a lot of good stuff in here. The first thing you want to do is install it, and then you can just bounce around in there to discover. Another thing is once you start chatting with the bot, you really want to just keep track of your performance. You want to make sure you're not peaking or bottlenecking. If you installed a small model and you run it and it's running pretty good, you're not at 100% for a long period of time on your CPU or GPU, then go ahead and install a larger model and see where your limits are. If you've installed a small model and you're peaking GPU and CPU, I would probably stop there, just hit the stop button on the chat, and then upgrade your hardware. You don't have enough horsepower to run this guy. This happened on my Linux box. I didn't know how to install the GPU, so it was running solely on CPU. It would be running 100%. I could hear the fans blowing. It would take a good amount of time before I got a response for hello. It was pretty bad. And then I learned how to actually make it chat or run it through the GPU, which is an older GPU. So this guy was running at 100%, and then this guy still would hit 100%. So that box is probably no good for running this local installation. So yeah, one thing to keep in mind is if you notice it's running slow, just see where your limits are and then work from there. So to recap, the goal was to understand what a local environment looks like, provide you with some tools that could allow you to understand AI better, and then give you an opportunity to leverage the tools, whether in business or your daily life, or to, inspire you, or if you're curious, it's always good to just find ways to feed the curiosity. My biggest takeaway when I installed this was installing it was really the easy part. The hard part was like, now what? What do I do? What do I do now? So coming up with ideas around how to use it is probably going to be the more important part. Everyone's going to have ChatGPT or OpenAI to chat with, but now you have this tool and you can explore ways that it hasn't been used yet or ways to make the world better. So I would suggest bouncing around. And if you find that this wasn't fun for you, if you're not even really interested in this stuff, I would say move on. There's other things in life to focus on. Just focus on what inspires you, what excites you. And maybe it just wasn't the right time. There was some music that I've heard, and at that moment I was just like, it's all right. And then a few months later, I listened to it and I'm like, whoa, this is sick. So sometimes our brains are just not ready to absorb what is being presented to us, and that's okay. Just know you can always come back to it later. There's no rush. There's no need. When the time is right, the time is right. And I'll just finish with always, find your own truth. Take care.